Major national dialogue that has just ended in Yaoundé afforded you the opportunity to reaffirm once more your attachment to peace and concord in your country, as well as its unity and progress. I would like to congratulate and thank you very sincerely for that. Your rich and diverse contributions were very useful. Some of them inspired the recommendations made at the end of the dialogue. I can assure you that all of them will be considered attentively and diligently with a view to implementing them, taking into account their relevance and feasibility as well as the capacities of our country. That was President Paul Biya on the 4th of October 2019, within hours of the close of the major national dialogue. One of the recommendations at that dialogue is the reconstruction and development of the Northwest and Southwest regions. And now that process has been put on motion. Our guest tonight is the National Coordinator of the Presidential Plan, Minister Paul TASONG. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Inside the Presidency, and I am your humble servant, ASHU NYENTY in Yaoundé. Brazzaville to Yaoundé is an axis of understanding and accord parfait. The diplomatic skies too are very clear. It is for this reason that Congolese President Denis Sassou Nguesso has dispatched this July 2nd, 2020, an emissary to confer with the head of the state of Cameroon. The envoy, Congolese Minister of State, Minister of the Economy, Industries and Public Portfolio, Gilbert Ondongo, is received upon arrival at the Unity Palace by both the Chief of State Protocol and the Minister, Director of the Civil Cabinet, Samuel Mvondo Ayolo, before being ushered into the presence of Paul Biya, assisted here by André Magnus Ekumo, until now chargé de mission of the presidency and freshly appointed Cameroon's ambassador to France. For over 30 minutes, President Paul Biya and the Congolese envoy make a tour d'horizon of bilateral relations between the two countries, but the pièce de résistance of their conversation centers on relations within the economic community of Central African States, CEMAC, noting that President Paul Biya is the current president of the Conference of CEMAC Heads of State, while Sassou Nguesso is the designated head of the Economic and Financial Reforms Commission of CEMAC. It is therefore in this context that the emissary carried a message from his principal to President Biya.
Vous en doutez.
As you can imagine, the message concerns the global health crisis and its economic fallouts. Being the person in charge of the economic and financial reforms in CEMAC, he asked me to transmit a message on the evolution of the health crisis and the economic situation in our sub-region. It is with the satisfaction of a messenger having accomplished his task that the envoy leaves the Unity Palace. One week after extending the retirement age for some categories of health workers, President Paul Biya has again taken another significant step to improve the working conditions for the working class in Cameroon. The old age and incapacity pensions, as well as death benefits, have received a 20% boost.
It's a tremendous increase. The rate of 20% is very important, very high, and as I said, everybody is happy of that today.
This is a promise the president made in 2016 to those who did not benefit from the automatic increase of pension benefits, and it is a promise he has kept. Over 100,000 workers are concerned with this measure, and this will cost the National Social Insurance Fund between 12 and 15 billion francs annually. And according to the Director General of the fund, the state will be able to pay the bill without much difficulty. This measure is part of the social actions of President Paul Biya, who said some years ago that until every Cameroonian is able to eat to his fill, his task will be far from over.
The President of the Republic has a particular social sensitivity. Meaning that everything concerning the the purchasing power of Cameroonian, everything concerning the way of life, the conditions of life, is very, very cautious of that. Every decision he takes is aimed at improving living conditions of Cameroonian. This is another proof of that social sensibility of the President of the Republic.
These multiple reforms have ensured that retired workers in Cameroon no longer suffer the frustrations of yesteryear. They are now paid their benefits the next month following their retirement. Ladies and gentlemen, I told you at the start of this program, my guest today is Minister Paul TASONG. He is the National Coordinator of the Presidential Plan for the Reconstruction of the Northwest and Southwest regions. Mr. Minister, nice to have you on Inside the Presidency today.
It's my pleasure being your guest today, Mr. ASHU.
I must also add that you are Minister Delegate to the Minister of the Economy, Planning and Regional Development. But today we are going to be talking about the reconstruction of the Northwest and Southwest region. You're just coming from a field trip to those two regions. I think it is much relief that despite the threats, the presidential plan is off to a good start.
Yes, thank you. We just came back from 2 very tough weeks in the 2 regions of the Northwest and the Southwest. And I believe the smile you see on my face is indicative of my state of mind and the state of mind of the team that went with me as well. We came back very satisfied that the conditions are rife for the presidential plan for the reconstruction and development of the 2 regions to take off.
So what did you see on the ground?
It was a mission, a tour, to raise awareness, to sensitize the potential beneficiaries of the plan, of what the plan entails, and of the methods that we intend to roll out to deliver on the expected results of the plan. So in terms of what I saw, I would rather say in terms of what I heard was people who are ready, people who are enthusiastic, people who are anxious for us to come and unfold our backs and deliver what is expected of us.
We come into that detail to size up, the sentiments of the people and their inner feelings as you saw them or heard them. But what is the extent of the damage in the Northwest and Southwest regions?
Amongst the real things that took us down, besides raising an awareness and sensitizing the people, we also sought to update ourselves on the level of damage, because the situation is dynamic on the ground. Our data was collected in 2018. Between then and now,
things have evolved.
Things have evolved. So some of the data is definitely obsolete. And by the way, from a more positive perspective, some people have actually moved on to rebuild, to reconstruct.
On their own?
On their own. So the situation is quite dynamic. So we also sought to update our own information as to what obtains on the ground. If you want to talk about digits, figures, numbers, it's good to say that in 2018, when we last assessed, tried to quantify the situation, we identified needs in terms of private official documents lost to the crisis to the tune of about 200,000. Citizens of the Northwest and Southwest regions, about 200,000 people lost official documents. I'm talking of birth certificates for all categories of the population. I'm talking of official school diplomas and other types of academic certificates lost. I'm talking of national ID cards and what have you. Of course, these are things we intend to assist the population to, regain these very important elements in life. We are talking of somewhere like 600 kilometers of road that need to be rehabilitated. Of course,
tar roads?
No, not tar roads.
Okay,
not tar. No, yes. Farm to market roads, but of course, generally the classified roads. you know. We're talking of about 12,000 houses that were destroyed by the crisis. We are talking of about 300 schools. We are talking of about 90 health centers. We are talking of, you know, about 700 farmers who we need to recapitalize, you know. We need to recapitalize.
Who lost almost everything.
Who lost almost everything. Talking of agricultural farmers, farmers in terms of livestock, in terms of fishermen. We're talking about 700 people who we need to recapitalize in their way. We're talking of something like 300,000 hectares of land.
Just to say,
agricultural land, which we need to rehabilitate.
Huge.
The figures are there, they speak for themselves. The damage is huge, as you rightly say. We will need to, as I said, update our database, and then we'll be good to go.
Anyway, that was just to grease the elbows, so that will permit me to take a first pause on this program to say President Paul Biya, the last several days, has been taking a number of decisions, you know, to keep this country afloat. A catalog of these decisions put together by staffman Charles Ebune.
July 3 this year, the steering committee meeting of the International Relations Institute of Cameroon meets with Minister Felix Mbayu chairing. The school's director, Salomon Ehed, presents management records. The meeting ends by midday. 5 hours later, President Paul Biya appoints him as Cameroon's ambassador, permanent representative to the United Nations office in Geneva, Switzerland.
My feelings is a feeling of joy. It is also a mark of recognition of the very top hierarchy in the case of the President of the Republic, His Excellency Paul Biya. This is a proof that the head of state appreciates the effort we are making. This appointment is gratifying because in our profession, diplomacy, the function of our ambassador is a crowning achievement.
And he is one of the 2 ambassadors recently appointed by the president, the other being Andre Magnus Ekumu, the country's chief diplomat in France, with the highest Cameroonian diaspora community in Europe of plus 30,000 people.
I want to thank the President of the Republic for this appointment because I think he relies on me, is why he accepts to send me to Paris to represent the Cameroon and himself.
Another accomplished diplomat also raised is this lady, Cecile Eyengambala, who becomes the country's first ever female Secretary General of the Ministry of External Relations since independence and reunification.
The feeling of gratitude, a huge gratitude to the Almighty God for, how can I say, his love to me that has permitted that I get this position. The second expression of gratitude is for the President of the Republic for the trust that he placed in me.
Just one, she is one of many chief ministerial scribes appointed by the President in agencies like Health, Territorial Administration, and Education.
As you can imagine, it's a very pride and honor to have been chosen among several Cameroonians to be the Secretary General of Ministry. By such, I want to thank the head of state, President Paul Biya, for that.
Aware of the huge task ahead of them, especially with the current sanitary challenge, the newly promoted pledged to work with dexterity.
To Cameroon, the achievement of our emergency in 2035 at the level of the United Nations and in Geneva more specifically, we have to follow up all issues that contribute to the objective of peace and security by ensuring the promotion and the protection of human rights, humanitarian issues with the various stakeholders. Together with the other international organizations that are part of the United Nations system, we must ensure the protection of our country's interests, such as organizations include World Trade Organization, International Labour Organization.
When you work with the president, you have to be patient. I think after 25 years, I think I am one of the oldest civil servants of the presidency.
I feel a lot of responsibility because I have to do the best so that they know that I deserve the position. So there are many expectations, and I commit to do my best so to be up to the position and to the position.
With that COVID, we have to rethink the way of teaching our people and children, and in order to make them be safe. And here I have the collaboration of the head of department, Professor Laurence Tumingwa, who gave me free hands to act.
Today, their key mental calculus is how to best use their unchallenged experiences to better public service delivery to their most cherished clients, the Cameroonian people.
Now, Mr. National Coordinator, how much of a challenge will it be to reconstruct when we know that, there are still gunshots being heard in some parts of the northwest and southwest regions? The guns are still smoking. That should be very difficult to reconstruct under those conditions.
Yes, this is, I think, the biggest challenge, definitely, amongst several others. But I think this challenge seems to receive more attention than it should. We're saying that we need to agree on certain basics. We need to agree on a new way of working. We need to agree on what we are looking for. And I mean, when I say we, I mean both sides of the spectrum. If we say we are both fighting for the interest of the people, then for real, let's bring the interest of the people to the center.
We should sue for peace.
Yes, we should sue for peace. And we are saying the reconstruction and development effort is another step towards peace. If this is the case, if we all agree that there is need for peace, if we all agree that for that peace to truly reign, we need to pay attention to the living conditions of the people for who we claim we're working for, then we need to agree on a new way of working. New way of working together to say, this is what we want to protect, the livelihoods of the citizens, peace to reign, and therefore let's give peace a chance by improving on the quality of life of the people who we all came to work for.
In this enterprise, Mr. National Coordinator, Mr. Minister, what specific instructions were handed down to you from President Paul Biya?
Yes, let's start by going to the origin of this whole thing. First and foremost, the tag, Presidential Plan for Reconstruction and Development, is loaded with meaning. The simple fact that the head of state allowed the highest office of the land to bear the name of the presidential plan is indicative of the personal attachment that he has to the success of the plan.
That commitment.
Yes, that said, his commitment manifested through the name of the plan in itself is sufficient for us to stay alert that our margins of failure are very, very tiny. Secondly, the head of state, of course, through the supervisor of the plan, who is the Prime Minister, head of government, Chief Dr. Dion Wote, instructed that the benefits of the plan are for all and sundry. Every citizen of the Northwest and Southwest region who was at one time a victim to the crisis, and who stands to be a beneficiary of the plan has a right to benefit from everything that the plan has to offer. So the plan is, as I normally would say, is politically insensitive. It is not reserved for people of a particular political leaning. It is not reserved for people with particular religious affiliation.
It is all-inclusive.
It is all-inclusive. It is for everybody. Thirdly, we were instructed to work on the basis of a certain number of principles, essential principles. The first and the most important one is, by the time the plan finishes intervening in whatever sector of activity, the outcome must be better than what existed before. So on the strength of this, we adopted a principle which we called the triple B, build back better, objective, reconstruct and deliver in every sector of activity. The outcome must be better than what obtained before the crisis. So, and of course, I don't need to emphasize the instructions in relation to transparency in the management of the resources and the processes of the plan.
But that's very clear, Mr. Minister. But let me just pursue that point. You talked about a triple B.
Yes.
Now, in this regard, have you mapped out some priority areas and priority projects?
This principle is going to apply across the board. It's going to apply from a micro level, that is, the little projects that will shoot off from the plan will come out better than they were. We intervene in the reconstruction of a home. That home has to be better than what it was before. But also, we look forward to transpose the triple B, the Build Back Better principle, to a macro level. We want to look at the economy of the Northwest and Southwest from a macro perspective, from a global perspective, and ensure that at the end of the plan, the performance of the economy is better than what it was. I'll give you an example, which, I mean, it stands out on its own. You know, the two regions are very, very agriculture inclined. The two regions produce a lot of cocoa and, of course, other fruit trees and what have you. So we are looking forward, when it comes to the cocoa crop particularly, to leave the Northwest and the Southwest with a better cocoa crop than it existed before the crisis. We are looking forward to put at the disposal of the cocoa farmers of the Northwest and the Southwest regions seedlings of the best quality, seedlings with the best performance, seedlings that have been tried and tested in other cocoa producing countries of Africa and the world. We think this will not only go to improve the cocoa crop in the Southwest, but with the spillover, we go to improve the cocoa crop nationwide. This is something which we hold dear to our hearts. We've received the approval of the supervisor of the plan, the Prime Minister, head of government, and of course, the approval of the head of state, to make sure that anything we touch, the name of the plan, comes out better than what existed before the plan.
Those are the projects. I was talking again, the other arm to the question, some of the areas, localities, which divisions you are going to lay emphasis on, especially at the first phase.
If you were talking
all
about
the divisions are going to be tackled at the same time?
That's our objective. That's our objective. An objective which, of course, is specific challenges. Because in terms of priority, we're trying to bring out two main things that would determine what we do first, if prioritizing means what comes first in time. So geographically, our priority will be where the security situation is best.
Now, you have said so many things, and it involves a lot of money. The question is, who picks the bills?
Yes.
Where is the money coming from?
The bills are picked up by Cameroon. That's the first thing. Cameroon pays the bills. And of course, Cameroon pays the bills with the assistance of its friends. Don't forget, Cameroon is a sovereign nation. No friend of Cameroon comes into Cameroon to do anything without the approval of Cameroon. So the head of state has given his blessings to the plan. He has effectively disbursed Cameroon's contribution to this first phase of the plan, which we are calling recovery and which is evaluated at close to 90 billion. He has effectively disbursed 10% of that amount, which is Cameroon's contribution, and other friends of Cameroon, both multilateral and bilateral, are getting ready to jump on board the ship.
Okay. Now, how was the assessment done? The needs assessment, I mean. And what guarantees are there to ensure that those who get something are those who actually suffered a loss?
Yes, in terms of how we quantified the needs, it's simple. We have an efficient administrative machinery on the ground. We simply relied on the administrative machinery to collect the data on the situation on the ground. That said, we will need definitely to confirm the veracity of that information by using other channels of information.
Or verification.
To implicate the civil society organizations who are present on the ground to confirm some of this information. And by the way, there is nothing we're going to do without putting our own feet on the spot to ensure that the information we have is the right information. And coming to the second part of your question, to
the guarantees.
What guarantees that those who will benefit from the plan are those who were victims of the crisis and who are effectively beneficiaries of the plan. As I say, it's a question of networking, and that's one of the key challenges we have. That's one of the things we're trying to do now. We're trying to cover the ground in a way as to be sure that nobody comes pretending to have been a victim when he really isn't a victim. That said, the road is kind of tricky, or let me say, going to be tricky, because it will be a question of a personal choice. Every potential beneficiary has to decide to be a beneficiary. You have to accept to be a beneficiary. We are calling it a demand-driven plan. That's to say, when you are a beneficiary, if you think you qualify, you have to effectively demand. You have to effectively make a request to be assisted. Otherwise,
if you cannot make a request and you suffer a loss?
Well, if you don't make a request, how do we know? For us to know that you are a victim, you have to make us know. You have to let us know. You have to call someone's attention that I was affected by the crisis and I need to be assisted. Now our challenge is to be sure that the networks that we put, that we deploy are efficient enough, are honest enough to bring to our attention the right information in terms of who was a victim, who becomes a beneficiary.
For those who lost houses, for example, well, markets, go to construct roads, you said that, but for those who lost houses, what are you going to do? Are you going to hand them money, or you are going to construct these homes for them?
This happens to be the single activity, the entire plan, which seems to be driving a lot of interest. This is understandable because the plan is people-focused. The plan is for the people. And there are several things which are not directly to the benefit of the people, like all public or shared infrastructure. But when it comes to the housing kits, the building, reconstruction of houses, the personal interest of the beneficiaries is at stake. And this justifies the enormous interest which we notice being generated around this line of activities. What we intend to do is to put at the disposal of the beneficiaries what we are calling housing kits.
What does that mean?
It's not cash. We're not handing out cash. We're providing you what it takes to reconstruct your own house yourself.
The blocks like zinc, is that what?
Yes, we're looking at the key cost centers when it comes to building a house. And we'll put at the disposal of the victims those material for them to rebuild their homes themselves. Listen, Mr. ASHU, across the two regions, and why not across the region, there is one cost center which stands out when it comes to building a house. The roof, for example, is the most important, the most expensive when it comes to building a house. In most communities, if you provide what it takes to roof a house, consider the house is built. The second thing is we have about 12,000 houses to build, spread across the wide surface area of the two regions, of the Northwest and the Southwest. Varied architectural styles, varied settlement approaches, models. You have localities, villages where everybody lives together. At the same time, you have villages where everybody lives on their hills. When you take into consideration this big challenge which we have ahead of us, the best thing to do to be efficient is to involve the beneficiaries in the entire process. You don't want to take the risk to imagine that you can award contracts to I don't know how many people to go build 12,000 houses. And when the timelines that we have, which is 2 years for this phase, is staring at you, you don't want to go down that road. So the approach which we're going to use is we're going to put at the disposal of the beneficiaries housing kits. What we got during our tour in the two regions is, on the strength of this steam which is generated by the possibility of rebuilding people's homes, we received quite a lot of suggestions on how to go about it.
Okay.
And interestingly, we came up with a housing kit which we proposed, which should stand at about 1.5 million per house. And suggestions were from lower than 1.5 million to about double 1.5 million. In some places they thought, no, some houses may not be up to 300,000. In other places they thought, no, we need about 3 million for a house to make sense. So we are trying to look for middle ground, But most importantly, we're trying to see how we don't lump it all into one category. Maybe we standardize 2 or 3 models. But the fact is, it's difficult to actually assess every individual house that was destroyed. It's not only difficult, it's virtually impossible.
You take a standard?
Yes, so we're trying to standardize. We take 2 or 3 models, which,
everybody has to queue up.
Yeah, everybody has to queue up. Some will lose, some will gain. There's no problem. It's a community. It's a question of regenerating social cohesion. So,
now, all of this, after having been said and done, do you think it's going to put an end to the conflict, to the crisis in those two regions, because that is the finality?
Yes, as we've said, and we'll say again, this presidential plan for reconstruction and development is not an end in itself. It's a means to an end, the ultimate end being the return to sustained peace. So if you look at it from this perspective, we believe the presidential plan is that that single pathway to peace, amongst others, which should
be explored.
We should, given the amount of interest generated around it, we should be able to deliver to a very large extent on the peace which we all expect.
On the peace which we all expect, I take that to have this pause on the program. Now, the reconstruction that we see today in the Northwest and Southwest regions is a happy end to a démarche that started since the major national dialogue. The story you tell us, staff lady Enanga Kebi.
The presidential plan for the reconstruction and the development of the Northwest and the Southwest regions, the outcome of the major national dialogue, was inspired by the President of the Republic, Paul Biya, when he instructed the creation of a working group at the Prime Minister's office. This was effectively done on August 1st, 2019, with the responsibility of elaborating a working document for the reconstruction of the two regions.
We've realized that our youths have been deconstructed with different ideologies and mentalities that we need to deconstruct and then reconstruct them as individuals in order to be able to have an enabling environment.
To effectively execute the important tasks, the working group carried out a wide range of consultations with the populations concerned.
The plan in itself is laudable and wonderful. It's something that we must thank the head of state. But then, for there to be a conducive atmosphere for investment, for reconstruction, it's one reconstructing the mind, and then you go to the buildings and what.
The Prime Minister, Chief Dr. Dion Gute, noted three major areas that needed close attention, namely the re-establishment of social cohesion, the reconstruction of destroyed infrastructure, and the revamping of the local economy.
I think we have suffered a lot, and everybody is eager to come back home and to see our home being rebuilt.
The reconstruction plan has a span of 2 years and would require over 89 billion CFA francs to be injected into the economy of the two regions.
The head of state is a man of action. We, the actors in the field, we must make sure that the people feel the impact of this presence, this visit.
The construction team has come, and we are feeling that it's becoming a reality because the way the minister has printed it, we believe it will go.
Revamping the social economy of the two regions, as well as ensuring social cohesion and rebuild damaged infrastructures, has just started.
This is a wonderful gift to the aggrieved persons of the Southwest region. It is, as we say in pidgin English, Asha enodi helep, but the cold heart. Basically, the program is there to build back better what has been destroyed.
The first phase will help restore human dignity in the form of lost cultures and traditional values. Also, lost documents and identification papers will be re-established. Here, three categories of beneficiaries have been identified, namely the administration, associations, and households. Meantime, internally displaced persons who feel more comfortable in their present environment would not be compelled to return home. Phase 2 and 3 of the reconstruction plan will target giant infrastructural projects like the Limbe Deep Sea Port, Sonara Extension, and the rehabilitation of the giant agro-industrial companies, the CDC, Pamol, Soweda, amongst others.
The agents of development, like CDC and Pamol, should be empowered first to be able to create enabling environment for things to happen. For instance, when these companies start functioning, all other derivatives will follow.
The forces of the Northwest region, in the presence of the administration of the Northwest region, hereby declare that we stand behind the presidential plan for the reconstruction and the development of the Southwest and Northwest region.
Although the crisis in the two regions, which erupted from the demands of common law lawyers and teachers, is yet to end, the government has decided to engage in the reconstruction plan so as to assist the suffering population, allow children go back to school, and give peace a chance.
Mr. Minister, Mr. National Coordinator, well, you have both caskets you are carrying out physical reconstruction. Now, what about the reconstruction of the mindset for the population to understand that we live in a country called the Republic of Cameroon, which has a leader called President Paul Biya?
Thank you for this very important question. Because in our global package of activities, global set of interventions which we look forward to deploy on the ground, we understand that there is need for fiscal reconstruction, but there is a soft side of reconstruction which is not less important. I'll tell you that we have a series of activities which target just that. There is need to build capacity on our populations. You know, up to very recently, the citizens of the Northwest and the Southwest regions never knew that they could live through violent conflict for this long period of time. Now, what we have to do is to ascertain that violent conflict is not the way of life, especially the outcome, the consequences of violent conflict, which is suffering, which is death, must not become a way of life. This is a challenge we have to face. So we have to, some will call it deconstruct the mindset, some will call it construct or reconstruct the mindset and what have you, but it boils down to the same thing. We faced this question or proposals of this type, of this nature, severally during our stay in the two regions. Let me take it this way, Mr. ASHU. Every village in the Northwest and Southwest regions of Cameroon has a cultural and development association. And we know that these cultural and development associations have in the past been very powerful agents in terms of mobilizing the forces of a locality, of a community for its own development. But at the same time, we also know that these associations were seriously challenged by the crisis. And their challenge came out and stood tall because managing conflict has never been part of their agenda. Now we are faced to serious conflict. So we must rearm these associations with the essential instruments of managing conflict within their own communities. It's not unimportant to emphasize the fact that the communities have been torn apart, families have been torn apart because of the crisis, and so on and so forth. We have to look for ways to bring back, that bond that existed within our communities. Some of these associations even existed before the independence of Cameroon. Many of these associations existed before Cameroon became independent. Many of them had to catch up with the law as the law evolved in 1991 with the law on associations. Many of them only had to go register.
What you're saying is that you're going to work with them
with the law.
to deconstruct or reconstruct, as the case may be, the mindset.
Absolutely, yes. As the case may be. Of course, it doesn't end with these associations. There are many others. The chieftaincy institution is one of the biggest victims,
which has been defied
of the crisis. The churches, who have stood the test of time as serious agents of development, have found themselves in dire straits because of the crisis. So you see, all of this, we have to look for a way to make it happen again. Of course, all of this boils down or should be able to remind the beneficiaries or the citizens of the fact that they belong to a certain nation, which is structured and organized in a particular way. And the fact that standing up against that nation is risky business. So, yeah, of course, there's a soft side to reconstruction, which is of utmost importance to accompany the fiscal reconstruction, which looks apparent.
Okay. It's a difficult task you have already, but you're also working now within a difficult context, that of the COVID-19. How much of a challenge is this to whatever you intend to do?
Yeah, indeed, COVID-19 has come to compound the difficult situation that prevailed in the Northwest and the Southwest before the 6th of March 2020. So one of the things we told the people when we were in Bamenda was, you already had a very difficult situation. Now something even more complicated has come to make this situation even more difficult. As I said, we have a certain number of water points, of course, which were destroyed and which are begging for attention in terms of rehabilitation. And you know, one of the most important ways of handling the challenge of COVID, amongst others, is pay attention to the health setup in the different localities. We have localities where the health personnel is not on spot.
Because of the crisis?
Because of the crisis. Where the health infrastructure has been burned down by the crisis and what have you. So we believe generally just deploying the activities of the plan in itself, when it comes to health, water and sanitation and what have you, deploying it alone is going to be a step in the right direction to enable the people of the two regions fight against this other challenge, which is the COVID pandemic.
Now, we're moving towards the end of this conversation, Mr. National Coordinator, but I will not go without asking you this very pertinent question I made. Now, there are some mythical projects in those two regions. I'm talking about the Ring Road, for instance. I'm talking about the Chang, Menji, Bakebe Road, the Lum, Kumba, Mondemba, Aqua roads. Are they also included as part of this presidential reconstruction plan?
Oh, yes. It's important to note that the genesis of the plan is a major national dialogue. The plan was first brought to the fore during the works of Commission number 5 at the major national dialogue. And what came out of the major national dialogue was a 10-year plan in 3 phases. What we are starting now is the first phase, which we call recovery, which is expected to last for 2 years. And this plan essentially, this first phase, this 2 years recovery, essentially seeks to, bring back the living standards of the people of the Northwest and Southwest to the same level.
Or even better.
At least to the same level as the 8 other regions of the country. This is the objective of the first phase.
The baseline objective.
The baseline of the objective of the first phase of 2 years is to bring the Northwest and Southwest to the same level as the rest of the country. In terms of social cohesion, in terms of essential infrastructure, in terms of basic economics.
And living together.
Of course. The second phase of the plan will particularly lay emphasis on the agro-industrial outfits of the two regions. Target being generate employment, target being get the CDC, get PAMOL, get UNVDA, and why not other private industrial concerns in the two regions back to their feet, get the economy of the two regions as buoyant as it was before the crisis, and of course generate the employment that we need for the youth of the crisis of the two regions. That's the second phase. The third phase of the plan answers your question. The mythical project of the Northwest and the Southwest regions. Yes, Mr. ASHU, those mythical projects are part of the presidential plan, especially in its third phase. And it's important to emphasize that the 3 phases are not mutually exclusive. The 3 phases run together. They run at the same time.
They're concurrent.
They're concurrent. You tried to name some of those mythical projects. I can't probably complete the list.
It's not,
but
exhaustive.
I would say you need to mention those that are, d'actualité, as we will say. The Limbe Deep Sea Port, for example, which is already there. It has got a major breakthrough of recent. That's in execution of the plan. You may want to also remember that on the, was it 23rd or 24th of June, the head of state signed a decree authorizing the Minister of the Economy to proceed to sign a convention with the African Development Bank to secure part funding for works on the ring road. That was about 106 billion. This is, you know, in a series, there's a series of conventions. That was the ADB, the World Bank is lining up, and everybody, European Union, everybody is lining up to complete the package for financing the ring road and others. The Menchum Dam, which I think you definitely remember, there are dams, potentials for hydroelectricity in Manyo division, in your division of origin. I mean, those projects are out there. Don't forget the Melong Bangem Tombe Road. This is as important. Sometimes, and of course, Mr. ASHU, our attention was very, very close to the situation of the subdivision of Akwaya when we were in Boya. We received a lot of interest generated, if we're talking of inclusive development, to do everything to get Akwaya subdivision receive all the attention that it requires. Within the ambit of the plan, within the limits of the possibilities of the plan, of course, we're going to see what to do. We can't leave aside amongst medical projects, of course, we can't leave aside something which is of exceptional interest to the people of the Southwest. If you go to Bakassi now, one thing that will definitely retain your attention is the level of erosion generated by sea waves on the banks of, you know, on the beaches, or what should I say, of the back. So there are lots of these things. It's important to say...
An ambitious plan.
Yes, the plan that came out of the major national dialogue for the Northwest and the Southwest regions was actually evaluated at about 2,500 billion. So all these projects come into this pack, you know, by just starting with the first phase, the introductory phase, which is just 90 billion. But note that, in all, the others are running, but they don't tie in this particular package, which has the objective of contributing to the sustained return to peace in the two regions.
Now, before we go, if you had the opportunity of meeting President Paul Biya today, haven't seen all of that from what you are saying, what would you tell him about where you think this reconstruction and development will take the Southwest and Northwest to in future?
Let's start with the first phase, whose objective is to contribute to return to peace. So in that wise, I'll be saying what he already knows, what we've already told him, that by the time we finish running this 2 years phase of recovery being considered as another stepping stone towards sustained peace, we should be there. The peace should be there. That's the first thing. On the other hand, the entire 10 years phase, the entire 10 years package takes the Northwest and the Southwest towards or to what we can call structural transformation. The two regions should be structurally transformed by the time we unveil the full pack. And of course, that definitely puts the two regions on the right path towards emergence in 2035.
That's a wonderful vision, Minister Paul TASONG, National Coordinator, Presidential Plan for the Reconstruction and Development of the Northwest and Southwest regions. Thank you very much, sir, for your insight.
It's been my pleasure working with you, Mr. ASHU. Pleasure always. Thank you.
This is where the curtains drop on today's program. Thanks for watching and goodbye.